Cambrian Explosion. Welcome to a new episode of Cambrian Explosion. Today, we're trying to figure out why Yawar is creating AIs so that we don't have any more jobs.
Hey, you know what? I don't think you can lay all of that on me. I'm just trying to, I'm just trying to create like Jarvis. You know, who doesn't like Jarvis from the Iron Man movies? We all want a personal assistant, right?
It's very dangerous territory, and we were talking about this earlier with Mavish. Hello, Mavish. And she had a personal story to share where this discussion started for us. Why don't you tell us your story, Mavish?
Yeah, hello everybody. Thanks, Nabil. I'm definitely going to, start us off with a trip down memory lane for me. Many years ago, I think it's been about 7 years, I worked in a catering startup. We connected businesses to small mom and pop shops in Toronto. And our job was just to make sure people in offices, when before COVID, they were fed. They loved coming to the office for food. And it was really funny, but one of our restaurants came to an office of I think it was 200 people, and the tray for the vegetarians was missing. It was a buffet lunch, and specifically build your own something. And if you're in an office and you don't feed the vegetarians, trust me, there's a bigger problem if you than you can imagine. So we went around, we looked into hallways and everywhere we could. And the restaurant owner actually went all the way back to her restaurant and back to the office, and we just couldn't find that tray. She sent me a picture of where she ended up finding that tray. It was actually on the top of her car. And what had happened was, because her car had railings on the top, her chef had gotten out of the car, put it on top of the car, and then gone up to set up the rest of the food service. And she had driven all the way back to her restaurant in Toronto, which was about 15 minutes away, and come back. And the tray hadn't fallen off the car. And people don't usually believe me when I tell them the story, but I have a picture to prove it. And what's really funny is that, everything turned out fine. But, looking back, I feel as if, we had some sort of AI technology or something that would help keep things in check and keep things on track. It just would have made my job a lot easier to do that. But it also brings up a whole host of other problems that we're probably going to talk about in this podcast about, you know, do we really need a big team when AI is there? There are less problems. You really need how big of a customer service team do you really need, right? Um, so at the end of the day, the client was happy, but it just brings up that question, how much do you need to automate, and where's that line,
So yeah, the question is, can AI replace our jobs? And I think there's obviously a lot of opinions out there. What we want to focus on is a few sources we found online, which talk about, which dive into this topic. Nabil, you are kind of like our resident expert on what jobs might be automated or replaced by AI right now, right? So, what do you think?
So I think that Mavish's use case is very interesting because there are things in there such as where the product was placed on top of the car. If you don't have sensors over there to know that the product is there, how does the AI know, right? So there are elements of it which are very interesting to dive deep into, like what kind of jobs can't be replaced, what kind of jobs can be replaced but need additional elements to be added, and then what kind of jobs are already there where you're like, oh, is this going to replace my job today? And is that really a true fear? Or is it more a question of it's going to change my job? And when it changes my job, am I going to become obsolete because I'm not upskilled enough for that? So I think that raises like these 3, 4 questions. And I think we can take these one by one. It would be interesting to dive deeper into each element. Let's start off with the most uh, dramatic one out of these. What are the jobs that can be replaced today? I mean, can we have self-replicating Yawar-like software and AI that writes code like Yawar, excellent, beautiful, elegant code.
Oh yeah. You just need a 10-line script to write code like me. You don't actually need me.
Can you just be replaced like that?
You don't
Yawar
even
2.0.
you don't even need artificial intelligence. You just need artificial dumbness.
That's kind of like one question which we can dive deeper into. What kind of jobs are likely to be replaced, and what does really replacement? Is it truly, hey, the job won't exist, or what has happened before historically when such innovation has come about?
Well, here's an example. Online moderation tools and online moderators in social networks like Facebook and Twitter, they are heavily pushing to replace their human moderators with AI moderators. Because of the huge volume of moderation backlog that they cannot have humans do everything. So they need to automate it. So, and how can they automate it? Well, you can't just use like a dumb checklist of rules, right? Because people come up with new ways to bypass moderation rules all the time. So you have to have something that learns and adapts to the real world conditions of what humans are doing. So, and then you naturally end up with something that looks like an AI, right? And the goal here is explicitly to replace humans because humans, not only will it be prohibitively expensive to get humans to do all of the moderation, but also it will be kind of very difficult for humans, especially um, emotionally difficult sometimes to see some of the things that people put online, right? So if you can get an AI to do it instead of a human, it might save a lot of time, and also it might save a lot of people from having to look at really weird things on the internet.
AI is relatively new right now. So, in terms of disruption, I personally feel that it will bring up jobs like, let's say we do have AI make a completely separate platform. You're still going to need someone to review that code to make sure that it's functioning. So, I think there will be AI quality control testers that this disruption is going to create. It won't necessarily completely replace it. And to be honest, even if the AI becomes so advanced, I still feel that tester would be needed to ensure that it's functioning properly, right? 'Cause at the end of the day, it is still a machine. There are bugs in code that happen even when the code is perfect, right? With those 10 lines.
So
Exactly.
if I can classify what you said, Yawar, is that when there's too much information, number one, or number two, when we need fast learning and adaptive learning, AIs are useful. If that's part of what the nature of your job is, then probably, and what Mavish is now saying is that you probably need to reskill around the idea of training the AIs to do that job, because at the same time it's somebody will still, even if the AI learns, and it can still end up in a situation where a human needs to verify the output just to make sure that it is on track to give the right results. It's not veered off, or maybe the socio-political context has changed and regulations have changed, and something else needs to be added in terms of tracking, that the AI needs to moderate for. So I'm hearing these kind of factors influencing the types of jobs that are right now being affected.
Right, but so now we're talking about in more general terms, but why don't we go to the most common topic of today, which is generative AIs or language models, these kinds of AIs that are super popular today, and they seem to be uh, the promised AIs that will take away the jobs. So what do you think of these kind of generative AIs?
To be honest, generative AIs change up the market a little bit. I was speaking to my brother today. He's a data scientist, and he was saying the data scientist field is actually going down. It's better to be in web development right now because LLMs or learning language models are basically doing a lot of the work. So, right now, being in web development is really big. It's less being in analysis of data. So it is making an impact in different industries, and what we are waiting to see is how complex can it go to affect us in that way. Back to our earlier discussion, I think what really AI is going to replace is this very heavy admin related jobs, right? So if you are like a secretary or someone who's um, doing some sort of very operationally heavy admin data typing type thing, that's what it's that's what I think is the biggest thing that it's going to replace. And so the question is, it's going to disrupt that. What new jobs are those people going to have to learn to do to be in par with that disruption?
Yeah.
What do you both think about that?
I just wanted to first pick up on the first point that Yawer had made. I think that in terms of what these generative AIs do, I did some pretty deep research into both the not just the chat GPT text based one, but also image based one. So I tried to create a music video out of that when Midjourney originally came out. It was pretty interesting to try to create a music video out of static kind of images, and trying to write the right types of prompt was pretty interesting. So prompt writing itself is a new field that has started coming up, and there are some challenges. It's not like you can just get up and do prompt writing. You need to play with the tool to understand how it responds to different types of prompts and structure of the language, etc., to deliver both in the visual format and in the so just on the visual side of things. What if you add elements like I want the background to be stylized in the style of, let's say, Picasso, but the front image to be stylized in an art fantasy? How would you write that prompt? Then there are also some challenges around going back to the QA piece of it that you had mentioned earlier, Mavish, that sometimes these chat GPT like interfaces, they hallucinate. So I asked it to create a math question for like a fifth grader using another example that I provided earlier, similar to this, so that I could give it to my nephew to practice on. And then what it created was an absolutely wrong question. The answer of it was wrong because I solved it before I gave it to my nephew. I just wanted to make sure that it's correct, and it hallucinated an answer. It was an incorrect. So you still need to QA what it produces. It's just and so that goes back to the nature of jobs changing rather than jobs completely disappearing.
Yeah, generative AIs have a reputation for getting incorrect facts. Because these language models have no conception of what reality is and what facts are, and how facts and reality and fiction are different from each other. Like there's this case of a lawyer using ChatGPT to generate a legal argument, and the argument referred to a case that doesn't exist as a precedent case, and he was caught by his trial judge, and he was penalized for that. He said he didn't realize that ChatGPT could give non-factual answers like that, and but now ChatGPT does warn you about that, but maybe some people don't read those warnings as carefully as they should.
On that, you forwarded me an article earlier about the New York Times suing OpenAI for copyright infringement.
Right. New York Times is now suing OpenAI because they're saying that ChatGPT is trained on a large corpus of New York Times articles, which are, of course, proprietary and licensed by New York Times. But they're using that corpus as a training base for ChatGPT, and it has been found that ChatGPT often reproduces whole like paragraphs of text that or it has been alleged, I would say, or rather say, New York Times is alleging that ChatGPT is reproducing these paragraphs of text wholesale verbatim without any changes. So it would appear that it's more just generating directly copy pasting the answers rather than generating a synthesized new answer as its creators would claim.
Yeah, and it reminds me of this funny video I saw on Instagram the other day where the person was asking the AI to come up with an image without chopsticks in it, and the AI just kept making the image with chopsticks, but just on a different side of the image. And then the chopsticks just grew in number because the AI could not understand what he was talking about. And even if you got really specific with the AI, like the sticks that are on the top right of the image that are long, please remove them. And it would just still keep making the same image, but just with more chopsticks. And I'm sure some of that was not real, but it just it reminded me exactly what you both are talking about, because it is true. Sometimes you ask ChatGPT specific things and it'll just keep repeating the same answer, just with slightly different types of text, because it really doesn't fully comprehend what you're trying to get it to produce for you, right? And so that's why it's a little bit far from what we really needed to do at this moment.
Here's my little tip for people. Number one, I believe OpenAI has launched a new avatar kind of program where you can create your own profiles of things that you want to, or robots, your own personal, train your personal robots. People should go sign up for that, test those out. And then the other piece that I will say is, in my experience using an existing framework, and there's a lot of frameworks that are available, like the Lean Canvas, the Five Porter model. So if you want to do a particular kind of study or work, ask ChatGPT about the frameworks that exist in that field, and then use those same frameworks as to guide the prompts that you're writing and experiment with it. Because, it is going to affect productivity. And if you can master the tool, I think you can, whether or not it takes a job away or not, you can make your own job easier just by improving the amount of productivity that you have. Like that's how I would think about it. Like, hey, this is a job augmenter. Why not get yourself already training in that direction?
So it's clear that there's going to be a lot of disruption. So what kind of reactions might we see to these disruptions coming up with jobs? Like, surely there's going to be some pushback, like, uh, you have to mandate that X% of your workforce has to be human, or you have to say that a human has to be responsible for every decision. You cannot have AIs making decisions like hiring and firing. And AI bias regulations. How to make sure your AI is unbiased, because AI is only as good as its training data, right? So whatever data you feed into the AI, you are going to get those kinds of decisions out of it as well.
Yeah, so there is some legislation that the government of Canada has released. It's called the Artificial Intelligence and Data Act. But just from my research for this podcast, it seems like there's just a lot of accountability and not a lot of oversight. It's more this act is there, and now they're expecting that people just follow it. And it involves deployment, design, and emphasizing risk when using when using AI. So I don't know how effective it is.
I mean, we've already seen some impact of AI AI has gone wrong. When you had these facial recognition AIs that originally came, and they were trained on white faces, so they would not recognize faces of color at times because they were just not trained well enough to do that. Just the sample population that was used. Similarly, there's already some job losses that have been impacted as well, because of AI. In May 2023, I believe 4,000 jobs were impacted as per one article.
That's actually one more topic I want to touch on. Like these companies that are laying off people and saying, "Oh, these jobs are being redundant because of AI." Is that actually true? I'm kind of skeptical that jobs are being made redundant by AI at such a large scale, 4,000 people, instead of the standard corporate tactic of grabbing any opportunity to slash costs and then do like stock buybacks with the money cost savings. I feel like many executives are seeing these AIs as a golden opportunity. Hey, look, here's something that looks like it could plausibly take away a human job if you don't look at it too closely. So what we're going to do is we're going to slash X% of our workforce. We're going to save this money. We're going to do stock buybacks, increase our share prices, and that's going to make my performance metrics look better by end of year, and that will increase my bonus. Usually, there's kind of like a direct link to me, or a moral hazard at least, between these things.
I will second that for you. I will add to the fact and maybe segue into another piece of the discussion that we set up earlier, which is what kind of jobs are really not going to be taken away by AIs because they need additional infrastructure to put in place. And I say this because a lot of the jobs which are hard to do are, let's say, it's carrying material, getting it to the right place, but carrying the material itself, like in logistics, that's a hard job to do. There's still people who do it with the help of machines, but there are people who do it, and it's a like in the warehouses, etc. And literally we use those people as robots, like the Amazon warehouses, etc. Now, to replace those jobs, you actually need to put in place infrastructure, a lot of investment around robots, around things like that. And those are not the jobs that are getting replaced. It's more the right now with generative AIs and LLMs, it's more a focus on the creative side, with Midjourney, like the creative jobs that are getting impacted, or the coding jobs or the writing jobs, um,
Or the SEO.
or the SEO related jobs. These kind of jobs which are sit on a computer and work, rather than the really hard jobs of carrying stuff, of doing agriculture, of those kind of things, because there's major machinery upgrades that need to get done.
Some jobs that cannot be replaced, for example, social work comes to mind. So if you are, in a job where you have to show a lot of empathy, you have to understand the situation, you have to answer with care because it depends on the person's situation. Those are jobs that, I don't think can be replaced. Like if you have women who are suffering and all that, you can't have a robot come to their house and help them through their problem, right? So I think there's some jobs that are never going to be able to be replaced, or I wouldn't suggest them for those high risk areas, right? And so you're right in that way, but I think because these creative jobs are being impacted, and we have such a big technology infrastructure, it is going to impact a lot of people, especially in the media industry, for example. So there's one AI tool that I looked up called Copy AI, which literally creates marketing copy that sounds very genuine. So, people have built a lot of businesses where they are entrepreneurs asking for a copy for their business presentations and for their emails and for their marketing information, and you could just use that AI to make six figures, according to some YouTube videos I saw. So, it is definitely causing a disruption.
I mean, it also means that if you're running a side hustle, right, you're just one person or two people, or even three people trying to do a podcast, and you want to like quickly and effectively generate material for, let's say, an element that you're not familiar with, you could easily use an AI to boost your productivity over there and get the effect of actually having six people working rather than just three. Just hypothetical thing that I'm saying.
No, you're right. And on that note, I just want to remind everybody that we are on Twitter at Cambrian World. So if you do see us, that's three brown immigrants that are trying to make an impact in the tech podcast space. So do give us a look and give us a follow, so you can keep in touch with our various topics. So I'm gonna ask all three of you. I think Yawer touched on this earlier. So did AI cause layoffs, and will it continue in 2024?
Yeah, like I said earlier, it's not clear to me that AI is actually replacing human jobs that will, in a fully capable way that won't require human supervision or human intervention again. Um, or even to the extent that, or even if you would think you could argue that they are, then I would argue that to the extent that is being claimed that these layoff numbers, 4,000 jobs, sounds to me like something that a claim that would need to be examined much more closely to be believable.
I'm agreed with what Jauer is. Don't know, but it needs to be looked into the claim itself. But I do feel that the AI revolution is here, and it's not 5 years away. It's here. It's if you want to ride that wave, do it today, get involved today, move on to it today. It's not like any legislation is going to stop it now. There are so many companies that are investing in the technology, so it's going to happen. So might as well ride the wave than miss out on this wave. That's my point of view on this.
Yeah, my point of view is that I think AI is the excuse people are using to do layoffs, because you can, if you see something new, shiny, and and you're losing money in your company, you might say, "Hey, I'm going to use Midjourney, Copy AI, ChatGPT to try to do this admin work and not hire this person I was supposed to today." So that I can stay afloat, so I can stay in business. And to a degree, that's okay, because you know what? Some small business owners don't want to close shop and go bankrupt. So I think in a way that's the excuse that's being used for all these layoffs. So I don't think AI is causing the layoffs. I think it's there, like Nabil said, and it's leading people to use layoffs as an excuse as the market goes down, as interest rates increase, and as the other things happen. And I think a few years from now, we're gonna, when we do need data scientists, they're gonna analyze the data and figure out exactly what happened. But until then, we will keep podcasting about it and figuring out what happened and how we can make an impact. So on that note, if you do have any other thoughts on this topic, please let us know on Twitter or on our various other platforms that we broadcast on, and give us a subscribe so you can keep continuing to support us. And thank you again for listening. It's always a pleasure. Any parting words of wisdom from my co-hosts?
I think I'm going to put experienced AI chatbot on my resume going forward. It might help my job prospect.
I'm going to go back to that line earlier. Embrace the AI world, go play with it, and have fun with it.
Yeah.
And eventually become an AI.
Eventually become an AI.
Yeah, we're all going to be part AI. If you watched our previous, or sorry, not watched, listened to our previous podcast on microplastics, you will learn that we are being weighed down by microplastics by 5 grams a week, of the weight of a credit card. So we are actually part AI already. And if you want to learn more, please go ahead and listen to that. We posted it, I believe, a few weeks ago. So yeah, we look forward to you for our next podcast, which will be about the cyber attack at the Toronto Library, I believe, Yawer.
That's right. That's an exciting episode. Don't forget to tune in for that one, folks. It's going to be a wild ride.
Okay, awesome. So until next time, I hope everyone has an awesome week ahead of them.
Cheers. See you guys next time.
Bye.
I get to say cheers again. Cheers.
Cheers.